Welcome back to the channel where we have a tism for history. Today we're at the Step Pyramid of Djoser. In the last video in my playlist on Assassin's Creed Discovery Tours, we looked at the mastaba, and the Step Pyramid is the next step in pyramid construction. So in the last few videos I've been at at Giza, at the necropolis of Giza, where the Great Pyramids are. Today we're taking a break away from Giza, because Giza is the height of pyramid construction. What we're going to look at today is more the the beginnings of pyramid construction. So we looked at the mastaba, the low flat bench style of tomb. That's the earliest style of tomb. And then this is the next level to that. Ah, there it is. So, we're going to look at the Step Pyramid. So this starts out as just, stacking mastabas on top of each other. And it was designed by the architect Imhotep, who we believe he is a real guy that existed. And he revolutionized tomb construction, and they deified him as a god for it. They worshipped him for like 1,500 years for this. So, really impressive guy, apparently. I never met him, but he sounds pretty impressive. So we're going to take the tour, and we're going to learn about Djoser's Step Pyramid.
Welcome to the Step Pyramid Complex of Djoser. The Step Pyramid is at the center of an enclosed complex, comprised of temples, models of palaces, and artificial constructions, all built for the afterlife of Pharaoh Djoser. The funeral complex itself covers 15 hectares and is located on the highest point of the Saqqara Plateau. It's clear from the elaborate detail and scale of the complex that this was a technological marvel of its time. The only fragment of information regarding the design plans of the complex was discovered on a section of stone containing an architectural sketch of a vault.
Alright, so these other pyramids came later. This is the section we're looking at today. And it says 15 hectares. I don't know how much that is in freedom units. Several acres, a dozen or 2 dozen, I don't know. It's several acres. Yeah, so pretty big, and it's like a walled complex. Like, it's literally like a city of the dead or a palace of the dead.
The Step Pyramid is the first monument built of stone. Standing at 60 meters high, it was the tallest of its time. Built 4,700 years ago, it was originally intended as a mastaba, which was a flat-roofed rectangular tomb. Its famous architect, Imhotep, may have felt this was too humble for the great Pharaoh Djoser, and began to add the steps.
So this is a mastaba. We looked at that in the last video in this playlist. And then, so like I said, Imhotep is like, nah, that's not good enough for the Pharaoh. So he started just stacking them on top. He made a stairway to heaven 4,700 years ago. Crazy.
The Step Pyramid complex is enclosed within a 1,600-meter-long wall that is 10 meters high. This large wall was made out of white limestone and oriented along the north-south axis.
Yeah, just really crazy, like how much effort. Especially, this is 3rd dynasty. So the pyramids of Giza, the Great Pyramids, that's 4th dynasty. This is the beginning of the 3rd dynasty. So like 100 or so, or 100 something years earlier, 150 maybe. And just like, this is such an early time in history. It's only a few hundred years after Egypt invents writing. So this is really, really early on. And they're already constructing these, palaces to the dead, these palatial complexes to the dead, and a stairway to heaven.
While there are 14 doors, only its eastern door was intended to accommodate the living. The remaining false doors were built as portals for the king's ka to pass through. Along with false doorways, the walls were designed with bastions and steeples resembling a defensive wall. The positioning of these design elements suggest that they were related to the Hebsed festival.
So yeah, it does look like a fortification, like a castle, like a palatial castle kind of complex with a fortified wall. And like I said, some of these doors, only one door was actually a doorway you could enter. The other doorways, or that look like gatehouses on the wall, are fake. And as it says here, it's for the king's ka to pass through. And ka is basically your soul. It's a little bit more complicated than that. The Egyptians had a very elaborate multi-layered process, multi-layered like definition of the soul, but the ka is like your vital essence, which is what we would probably consider the soul. And it says here, it appears this design is to correlate to the Hebsed festival. This is a festival that celebrates when a pharaoh has reached 30 years of his reign, or at least that's in general. That's what it was. Sometimes they would hold the festival even before they ruled for 30 years, but so that's what they're talking about.
The only real entrance into the complex is at the end of a long, narrow passageway. This enclosure has a stone canopy carved to resemble wooden logs. At the end of the passage is a large opening. Meant to resemble a doorway, it has carved doors and hinges that are permanently open and immovable.
So here's a little example of the art style. And if you look up, like you said, it's made to look like rolled logs. A lot of this in this temple is made to resemble different materials other than stone.
The corridor is lined with 20 pairs of columns up to 6 meters high, built by stacking stone drums. The completed facade was made to resemble reed stock bundles. Traces of red paint were found on the columns, along with black paint on the support walls. This would have had the effect of blending the walls into the shadows to give the red columns the illusion of standing on their own.
Yeah, in ancient architecture, it was very difficult to create a large open space without columns and support walls. So here they have columns with the support walls, but they would have painted those black so that when you came in the darkness, you wouldn't be able to tell that the columns were not freestanding. Just to give it that illusion that there was more open space than available. And this is a stele representing interlocking doors. Ancient religions, and even some modern ones, it's passing through doorways. Passages are they're really connected with the divine in ways that maybe isn't as intuitive to modern Western audiences. You see this more in modern Eastern architecture. So like in Japan, they have like torii gates where you pass through the gates on the way to a shrine, and each gate represents something. The Egyptians seem to have ideas like that, like passing through gates, passing through doorways as being like a sacred, passing from one stage to the next. There was a lot of passage motifs in early Greek and Roman religion, but that over time kind of faded away. We don't really use that kind of symbolism in modern Western religious iconography.
Chambers are located on either side of the columns and are thought to be chapels representing the provinces of Upper and Lower Egypt. According to some Egyptologists, the arrangement of the rooms may be symbolic of jurisdiction and judgment.
Yeah, so here's an example of a perfume vase. Pretty cool. This is, does it say what year? It doesn't say, but very old. And so, yeah, these chapels and rooms inside the palace representing Upper and Lower Egypt. And the rooms may have had symbolic meaning of jurisdiction and judgment. So again, passing through the rooms, passing through the doorways, going through judgments, passing through phases of judgment. And then coming into the grand courtyard and seeing the stairway to heaven, which would carry Pharaoh's soul up to Osiris.
Guarded by a line of carved snakes, this tomb is located at the southern end of the courtyard. The burial chamber is beneath it, down a 30-meter deep shaft. The low-ceilinged chamber resembles a mastaba and is relatively intact compared to the later burial chamber. The tomb is made of pink granite, though there is evidence it was once polished limestone. Too small for a body, it is possible that the tomb was intended for the king's ka, or to hold the canopic jars containing the king's organs. Later traditions in burials would have the canopic jars in the same chamber as the body.
Yeah, the canopic jars store your organs. They really tried to preserve everything. It's kind of weird, right? Like to store someone's stomach in a jar and then mummify the body. But, they believed, preserving all these organs, preserving the body, that was going to be useful to the dead in the next life. That it would keep their spirit tethered to, to these objects and so that they could interact with the tomb, the temple, the whole complex. So possibly they preserved the organs in this room. And then here's to Urea, so guardian snakes, 13th century BC.
A polished limestone staircase leads west from the tomb to underground apartments. Some of these rooms were intended to accommodate the king and his family in the afterlife. Many large jars of pottery were found, including some that still had deposits of beer, milk, and oil inside them. The false doorways are decorated with reliefs of the king taking part in rituals. In these reliefs, he is seen carrying agricultural tools, running, and performing a ritual for the reanimation of the deceased.
So these are some wall tiles from the apartments of King Djoser. So it seems like his family may have also been buried here. And stored with large jars of pottery with beer, milk, oil, and then pictures of the king taking part in rituals and reanimating the deceased. So his family's buried with him, and then he goes around, waking them up after death. The pharaoh is guaranteed, or basically guaranteed, resurrection by the gods, but the lesser people around him, he has to vouch for them. He has to ensure their resurrection. They don't just get granted it because they're not as high status. The pharaoh is basically God. He's literally God. He's thought to be Horus on earth. So the family around him depended on him. And so, we just get these reliefs showing him in the afterlife, going around, running around, reanimating everybody, performing voodoo rituals to wake them up. It's pretty crazy. I mean, the whole complex is meant to be used by the spirits. Like, he and his family and his courtiers would be buried here, and they would continue on. Their spirits would be tied to this place, and they would continue on after death, performing rituals, performing magic, blessing the land of Egypt, blessing the descendants so that they could rule and have power. And really elaborate, really crazy stuff.
The architect Imhotep chose stone as a building material in order for the complex to last. Following the completion of the initial mastaba, Imhotep devised a burial of more ambitious dimensions. He set about stacking mastabas on top of each other. Evidence shows that the pyramid was enlarged twice by additional cuts into the steps, eventually reaching 62 meters in height and 121 meters by 109 meters at its base.
Yeah, so he starts... So they initially intend to build a mastaba. Then they finish it. Then they're like, let's make it bigger. So they stack mastabas on top. And then they say, let's make it even bigger. And then they widen it and then stack more on top. And one of the ideas is that, they would aim to complete these tombs, near the time of Pharaoh's death. And this Pharaoh may have just happened to live longer. And so they may have just kept going, widening the temple or the pyramid and then expanding it vertically and adding more to the temple complex around it. Here's a statue of Imhotep. He was deified. They worshiped this guy because he revolutionized their tomb construction and basically, from if you're a true believer, this guy, if you're a pharaoh and you really believe in this resurrection stuff, like this guy is helping you preserve your power into the next life. He's elevating you to a higher plane of godhood, and so that allowed him to be deified as a god as well. Because he was so awesome.
A staircase allowing the pharaoh to enter the divine world was represented by a tiered pyramid, oblong in shape, completely enveloping the original mastaba. The pyramid itself is a solid structure. All of the chambers and tunnels are beneath the structure.
Yeah, this is a drawing of it from the 1850s. Stairway to Heaven.
Pharaoh Djoser the Sacred was the founder of the Third Dynasty. He ruled for 19 years. During his reign, he was known as Horus Negereket, divine of the body. He was given the name Djoser several centuries after his death as a sign of respect, and he is regarded as one of the greatest pharaohs of Egypt. An apocrypha was drafted in his name during the Ptolemaic period, 2,500 years after his death.
Yeah, so Horus Negereket was actually his name. He wasn't called Djoser in his life. Horus of the body. Horus is the sky god, so he's the resurrection of Ra and Osiris. So the pharaohs had like 5 different names, like a Horus name, an Osiris name, a Ra name. But the Horus name is usually like the main one that they're referred to as. So Horus of the body. Because he is Horus on the earth, incarnated in the flesh.
Djoser was associated with the sky god Horus in his human form. A plinth near the step pyramid is inscribed with his name and associated with Horus. He was the first to reside in Memphis, making it the central hub of government for the region. Djoser was known to have built many temples and monuments before the complex at Saqqara. The funerary complex was the first of its kind and would mark Djoser's greatest architectural achievement.
Yeah, I mean, this is so early in human history. Like, the population of Memphis, this became the first capital of the Old Kingdom. And the population at that time, maybe 10,000 people, 30,000 tops. Like, it's not big by modern standards. It's like a village by modern standards. But, this is just so early on. This is Memphis in the game, by the way. That's the Temple of Ptah over there. The creator. But yeah, so this is like just early on in human history. I have to stress that so much. It's a few hundred years after writing is invented. And that's why Imhotep was considered such a genius. Like, he revolutionized architecture early on in human history.
The funerary complex was built to resemble Djoser's palace, with the stone carved to imitate mud brick, trees, and reeds. Creating these details and softer textures in hard stone would have been a time-consuming, labor-intensive task. Much of the complex is designed to accommodate the Hebsed festival, allowing the king the ability to affirm his rule even in the afterlife.
All right, so there's that Hebsed festival again. So, it was built to resemble his palace. This was the first monumental construction built entirely in stone, like a large stone. Most of it all of it up till now would have been built in mud brick. And what they did is after they finished it in stone, they went and carved in like imitation brick into the structure. So if you look at it, like it's made to look like tiny little bricks, but they're not. These are big, giant, 10, 20 ton stones that have been shaped on their surface to look like small mud bricks that have been stacked. Because probably just, that's what they were used to. That's what the temples and palaces would have looked like, and this is built to look like his palace. So if everything else is mud brick, you want the tomb to look like that, even if it's not built out of mud brick. So, pretty crazy.
In the corner is a temple referred to as T. This temple is among the most mysterious structures in the complex. Its outer facade is plain, while inside it is decorated with intricate jed pillars and carvings. It's possible that this place was intended to be where the Ka of the king materialized, symbolically visiting the platform of the Hebsed courtyard from the afterlife.
Yeah, so this drawing is more accurate than the game itself. This is what it would have looked like. So a T-shaped courtyard with palace and chapels and stuff off to the sides. And this is like an imitation of a courtyard that would have been used for a Hebsed festival, a 30-year reign. Now, this pharaoh is believed to have ruled only 19 years. Some scholars think he may have ruled for 28, 29 years, that he may have been coming up on a Hebsed festival, and that may be why they built, this outer structure to be used for a Hebsed festival. Whether he lived 19, or whether he reigned 19 or 29 years or whatever, the intent is he's going to celebrate his Hebsed festival in the next life, at the very least. And his rule is going to continue on. And he's going to celebrate that 30-year mark in the afterlife if need be.
The Hebsed festival enabled the pharaoh to maintain universal order and renew godly powers. Through a series of trials and religious rites, such as dance, offerings, and visiting the sanctuaries of various deities, the ruler's vital force and divine nature was confirmed. The celebration was meant to represent the ruler's jubilee and would take place every 30 years, though the deadline was not always followed. The earliest known ritual dates from the first dynasty.
So that's the earliest we have it in writing. It probably predates that. It probably was a tradition carried on by rulers before Egypt was unified. And he's at the beginning of the third dynasty. So he's reaching back to his ancestors and following their traditions. For every 30 years, you're going to have a festival. But this deadline is not always followed. So he may have been celebrating his earlier, or he may have been intending to celebrate it in the afterlife. One of those.
Within the complex of Djoser, southeast of the pyramid, is a dedicated space for this essential ritual to be performed by the king even in the afterlife. The Hebsed courtyard is lined with false chapels and equipped with a platform featuring two staircases meant to represent Upper and Lower Egypt.
Yeah, Egypt was thought to be two kingdoms that were united into one. So there's a lot of symbolism with Upper and Lower Egypt, the ruler of the two lands. And this is the Hebsed courtyard, where all these chapels to various deities, and he's going to continue their worship into the next life, and they are going to look after him and renew his godly powers as Horus.
Located in the courtyard, the two pavilions are believed to represent the palaces of Upper and Lower Egypt. Rectangular in shape, the two replica structures face one another. Their facade is similar to the chapels of the Hebsed ceremony, with column crowns carved to look like falling leaves. Because Queen Hetep-Hernepti and Princess Inetkas's names were discovered on a stela near the pavilions, it is thought that these funerary chapels were intended for them.
Yeah, so 2 pavilions, possibly one for Upper and one for Lower Egypt, or possibly one for the Queen and one for the Princess, or both, dual symbolism. And yeah, again, with relations to the Hebsed ceremony. Yeah, it doesn't really look accurate in the game. Like, this is what it looks like in the game, and this is what it would have looked like back then. They're not... Assassin's Creed is not always accurate, obviously. They get the main stuff right, like the building itself, but not the entire complex.
The funerary temple is on the north side of the complex, facing the stars where the deceased ruler was believed to travel after death. Within this temple was the pharaoh's serdab, or cellar. It is a small, enclosed space with one wall sloped to match the first step of the pyramid.
So his cellar. Like I said, this is his, like, home in the afterlife. He's gonna live here and continue to rule. Alright, we got one more station here. On the edge of the courtyard.
The north wall has 2 observation holes. A statue of Djoser is seated on the throne, wearing a mantle and a tripartite wig with a crown known as a Nemes. Representing the king's Ka, this statue looks through the observation holes into the courtyard, enabling the king to observe the ceremonies and receive offerings in the afterlife.
How creepy is that? So, his Ka, his spirit, would be watching you. So, they were worshipped after their death. So, people would be coming here. Priests would be coming here, making offerings, performing rituals, and he would be watching them from his creepy undead statue. You know? Just staring at them, making sure they do the rituals right. If not, he curses them. How creepy would that be? Especially if you were an Egyptian who believed this. Like, you believed that that was the spirit of your pharaoh. So, yeah, he was watching over you. Alright, so that's it for this video. It's already gone on long enough. In the next video, we're going to go into the step pyramid. We're going to go under. We're going to go visit the tomb of Pharaoh Djoser.